All right, guys, this game sucks. NFL's Greatest might not be the worst Sega CD football game, but oh man, it's up there.
The give is to Dorsett. Not much there.
In hindsight, it's really hard for me to understand why in the world this game ever even came out.
Straight back to pass. Looking upfield, looking. Now he's starting to run. Rolling out to his right. He's scrambling and heads upfield for a couple of yards.
And even the best parts of this game are awful because of that horrible video quality. Well, gentlemen, I know it's difficult to believe, but it is true. There was once a time where guys like you and me were more than satisfied with watching something like that. And yeah, I have had to censor at least the sound for some of these parts to, keep this video monetized, so thanks to YouTube for all that. Anyway, NFL's Greatest, San Francisco versus Dallas, 1978 to 1993. What a great name. It's not necessarily like an awful game or an awful idea. It's just totally half-baked, that's all. And the interesting thing is that it's not really that hard to trace where this idea originally came from. So as some of you guys know, the concept of playing a football game as the head coach is actually nothing new. APA ran with this concept in its football game way back in like 1957-58, which I think makes it the first board football game to use real players and let you call real plays. Stratomatic followed up with its own game in the late 1960s. And of course, there have been other board games since then. And of course, that's only part of it, right? You guys all know by now that there were tons and tons of games that focused on football management that came out, especially in like the 80s and the 90s. We've already talked, right, about XOR Football Challenge, remember that, or NFL Challenge. Remember the Front Page Sports Football Pro Series, right? Even the Tom Landry football games on the PC was the same sort of thing. You were the coach, right? Same thing's true of like micro league football and a whole bunch of other games like that. I could go on and on. However, this particular game does not really have much in common with any of those games, nor does it really have anything in common with APA or Stratomatic. Instead, this one really feels a lot more like the old VCR football games. If you remember, I mentioned this game, NFL Armchair Quarterback, in my video about pro sports football cards. The idea here was that you would try to predict plays while you watched a game like in real life, and you would get points for getting certain things right. Anyway, around the same time you had games like this VCR quarterback game show up, and this one was a little bit more interactive than Lud Denny's Armchair Quarterback. So I actually had one of those back when I was a kid. In fact, if I remember this story right, I got this as a present from like some girl that I knew when I was 10 years old, right? But that's another story for another time. So anyway, the way that this game worked is that like one player would choose the offensive play and then the other player would choose the defensive play. You would somehow combine the two and you would roll the die, and then you would find the part on the videotape you were supposed to watch. And what you would get would be authentic NFL game footage, followed by an explanation of what happened. So here you get plus 12, which I think is like plus 12 yards. The problem, of course, is that the plays wind up being really repetitive since you wind up watching the same part of the tape over and over again until, of course, it wears out. But the nice thing is that they chose some pretty crazy plays to include in the video. And yeah, so if you've played the game, I have, it really, really sucks. Like, for example, you'll think you're doing well, you're driving up the field, the next thing you know, you got the ball snatched out of your hands just like that. And don't think that these games gave you like a bunch of coaching options, they really didn't. This was just an excuse for the company to sell you a bunch of random NFL Films clips in slow motion, and of course they were all cut up, so you couldn't like sit down and watch it like you were watching a game. Now, the way that this works has a lot to do with how those old VCRs worked, and kids these days really don't know how bad we used to have it. You see, the old VCRs had these digital counters, like this one from 1985, for example. The book that came with the football game would tell you to advance to a certain time in the video, and that's where your next play would start. But one of the problems is that the tape literally goes straight from one play to the next with basically no margin for error. And the other problem, of course, came with the VCR, right? On the VCR, it's really, really easy to reset the counter. And there is a reason for that, by the way. So as I remember, that counter was really sort of like a bookmark system for your VCR. So I don't know, if you wanted to watch something like, the locker room scene and bring it on like over and over again, like you would find the beginning of the scene and you would restart the counter, and then you could easily find it afterwards. You go back and rewind it to the beginning of the counter, voila. Of course, this is just theoretical, right? Like, it's not like I would know anything about stuff like that. Anyway, the reason I'm talking so much about this crappy game is because NFL's Greatest on Sega CD is literally the same concept. I seriously think I played this game like one time before going back to APA. It was that bad. And I've probably still got my copy at my parents' house somewhere. Maybe I'll go back and find it one of these years. And of course, in the end, nothing happened between the girl and me. But we don't need girls, right? We've got old football video games to play. Anyway, like I've been saying, the Sega CD game is basically the same as that really crappy VHS game, except that the video quality is a lot worse. You can tell that it's crappy from this montage at the start, and yeah, I muted the sound again, my apologies. Anyway, if you look at this closely, you'll realize that these are actually just still photographs, they're not even video clips. They show different parts of the same picture, which is a cinematic technique that is so cheap and so crappy that you don't even see it these days on YouTube. And the funny thing is that this wasn't even because of like a hardware limitation or lack of space or whatever. And I mean, this was a Sega game. It's not like this was by EA Slop or anything like that. No, Sega is the company that published this game, right? Sega, right? The whole, Genesis does what Nintendo don't thing, yeah? They published this game the same time as that awful Joe Montana's football game for the Sega CD. Now, that Sega CD game really, really sucks. In fact, as bad as this game is, this one's got to be better than Joe Montana football and the Sega CD. That game's awful. But at least that game had kind of a nice looking intro. Well, okay, maybe it's not the best intro screen of all time. And it gets you to this really boring press start screen right away. But if you let the demo run long enough, you'll see the computer ask Joe Montana for help, and notice that it's actually full motion video. That's a lot better than showing portions of the same picture over and over again for 2 whole minutes. Now, the reason why NFL's Greatest doesn't include, a demo screen is because there's literally no game. I mean, like I said, this is basically low-quality VCR NFL quarterback, right? The worst part of all, though, the one part that's inexcusable, the one thing that I will never understand, is the fact that you can only choose from 2 teams, either the Cowboys or the 49ers. So you have like 6 different options to choose from here, including which of the whopping 2 teams you get to play as. The manual very helpfully explains to us that you have 2 exciting choices, either the Niners or the Cowboys. So let me get this straight. Whoever decided to come up with this idea for the game, not only did they want to use a bunch of random NFL Films clips, right, like VCR quarterback, but they also decided arbitrarily that you can only choose from 2 teams, right? So they clearly had the NFL license. To my understanding, like this meant that they could use like any teams in the NFL, right? The logo of the NFL and of these 2 teams is all over the place, and I don't believe that the teams gave out the license separate from the NFL. It doesn't make sense. But they decided to only put in 2 teams? I mean, what was their problem? I mean, in Joe Montana's football, which came out the exact same month, you can choose from any one of the teams. And yeah, I know I chose San Francisco and Dallas here, but that's not really the point. In this game, you're stuck, either the 49ers or the Cowboys, with nothing else to choose from. So I think the reason why they did it this way is because they wanted to have the full announcer voice. But the problem is that sucks as well. I mean, the announcer in this game really, really sucks. When a play comes up, you'll hear a few names mentioned. Notice, though, that the announcer only mentions the names of the big players, the money players, right? The quarterback, wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends.
Roy Aikman under center for the Dallas Cowboys. Drops back to pass. Still looking. Under pressure, and he'll be sacked.
There's no mention of any defenders in any of these plays. Now, the audio quality is really impressive, right? Because it's all CD quality audio. But the problem is that it's CD quality audio of like this rando who's not a broadcaster literally reading something from a piece of paper. I mean, it's not the best announcing in the world. The quality is good for 1993, but then you have to listen to this guy talk. And the biggest problem here is that Sega's own Genesis football game had better quality announcing. I mean, Lon Simmons' voice sounds kind of funny in this game, sure.
Puts it up. End zone. Touchdown.
And Simmons said a lot more names than the guy in NFL's Greatest ever said. In fact, Simmons keeps talking to you in between plays, and he rarely repeats himself.
At 11-yard line. First down for the Patriots at the Seahawks 11 with 1:39 on the clock.
I will never, ever, ever understand why Sega didn't just use the same Lon Simmons recordings for these Sega CD games. I mean, they clearly had the recordings, and it was almost certainly in higher quality because they had them sampled down to that 16-bit system quality, right? Well, why not just, keep like the files or the tapes or whatever, and then use the higher quality versions for the CD games? I mean, Joe Montana's football on the Sega CD has no announcer at all, which, I mean, is just one of the many things that makes it horrible. And NFL's Greatest, like I said, has some guy who barely knew what he was doing. It's a total turnoff. Now, the other thing you need to know is that you need to change the quarter length. 15 minutes for this game is insane. With the length on 5 minutes, it took me an hour just to complete a single game of this, and I'm not kidding. So the reason for this is because of the slow CD loading times. Well, okay, that's kind of the reason. It's also because there's a whole bunch of just unskippable garbage. You see, time doesn't work quite right in this game. In fact, as I've been saying this whole time, it feels a lot more like that VCR quarterback game where you have to move like the little pawn from one space to the next to keep track of the time. It feels a lot more like that than, an actual football game. Anyway, you have the coin toss, and the other team gets the ball, of course, and then comes the kickoff. You don't get to choose any strategy or anything, all of this just happens.
This will be the San Francisco 49ers kicking off. And there's the kick, heading right down the middle of the field.
Well, get used to that. That's basically the whole game. You can choose plays, sure, but it doesn't have anything to do with like the actual result that you get. Now, you might remember that the beginning screen let you choose whether you want full screen video on or off. The manual calls this the Sega Vision screen, but you're probably better off leaving the full screen video off. The full screen off mode gives you a small video like this one. It's actually kind of watchable, though it's still amazing to me that we once thought that this garbage looked good. In contrast, the full screen mode looks like absolute garbage.
For the Dallas Cowboys. Under center, waiting the snap. Long count. He's straight back. Upfield, it's Michael Irvin, and a reception for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, this game sucks. You can tell, right? It's just 100% awful. There's nothing good about this game at all. And the more that you get into it, the more frustrating it gets.
Down 3.
Right from the beginning of the game, I realized that it really didn't matter what I called on defense. Dallas drove the field, and there wasn't anything I could do about it.
For the Dallas Cowboys. Under center, waiting the snap. Long count. He's straight back. Upfield, it's Michael Irvin, and a reception for the Dallas Cowboys.
The big play was this one. Our passing defense couldn't stop them at all.
Troy Aikman looking over the defense for the Dallas Cowboys. Under center, waiting the snap. Long count. He's straight back. Quick pass, taken in by little Alvin Harper.
Dallas scored on the next play after a 3-yard pass, and it's hilarious that the video shows a long passing play.
He's going to pass. Pass play upfield. Cosby in the end zone. He's got it. Touchdown, Dallas Cowboys. Dandy play.
Now that's one of the problems that those VCR quarterback games or whatever had, right? You have like first and goal on the 2-yard line, and then the game gives you like a gain of 30 yards or something like that, right? I mean, even back in the late 1950s when J. Richard Sites was making APA football, even way back then, he figured out a way to make it so that this sort of thing wouldn't happen, right? But Sega couldn't figure it out. Anyway, it's kind of funny the first couple times you have it, but after a while, you just want to play a normal football game and not look at all this crap. Anyway, our next drive stalled, so we had to kick a field goal from the 30. And of course, the game used the extra point video for some stupid reason.
Field goal try for the 49ers. Kick is on its way. It's up there, and it is good.
A few minutes later, we faced a 4th and 4 from the 25, so I went for a fake field goal.
Montana with the ball. He rolls left. Looking upfield, still looking, wants to throw. Pass to Rathman. He takes it in heavy traffic and is brought down.
It worked, which is a good thing, but that didn't even look like a fake field goal. I mean, they couldn't even come up with like a film clip of actual fake plays. I mean, I don't know if the Cowboys against the 49ers has ever featured this, but there's tons of clips here that don't come from those games. And I mean, there's been a lot of fake plays in the history of the NFL, right? Like the funny thing too is that the computer will always call like a field goal defense or a punt defense if you call a fake on like first down and like 80 to go or whatever. But the crappy thing is that this game doesn't have any of the video clips of the fake play, right? So like you can't get immersed. Every time you call a fake, the quarterback will snap the ball behind center every single time. Anyway, we punched it over for a touchdown a few moments later.
Tom Rathman, he's in. Touchdown 49ers. He's a very happy man.
And we followed all of that up with a short pass for a touchdown from the 4 late in the third quarter.
He rolls left. Looking upfield, still looking, wants to throw. Pass taken in by Roger Craig. He's going to go. Touchdown, 49ers.
By this time, I thought the game was in the bag, and I was planning on stalling the computer out once we got the ball in the fourth quarter. And that was probably my mistake. You see, I assumed that this would be like every other football game from the 1990s, you know, where you could like slow the offense down, you could eat up the clock, you could do that sort of thing. Nope, you can do that in literally every other football game out there except for this one. Now, in NFL's Greatest, you have to play at the same tempo every single play, even if it makes no sense. Anyway, Emmitt Smith peeled off a 14-yard run early in the fourth to cut our lead to 3.
Emmitt Smith, touchdown, Dallas.
And we got to see this great Dallas Cowboys cheerleader video as a reward. Anyway, like I told you guys, it's a lot better if you just turn off that stupid full screen mode. Just forget about it, turn it off, go with the partial screen. Anyway, we got the ball back, and I figured finally we could slowly burn up the clock while we moved upfield, and boy, I was wrong. Roger Craig couldn't get anywhere on this 2nd and 2 play right before the 2-minute warning. So I decided to go for another fake special teams play on 3rd and 2.
Steve Young now awaiting the snap from center. Looking over the defense. He's back to pass. Pass to Solomon.
The result was an incomplete pass, bringing up 4th and 2. We were on the 38-yard line, and I figured that I really had to go for it. Punting wouldn't make sense, and we were too far away for a field goal.
At quarterback for San Francisco. Long count at the line of scrimmage. Now he's back to pass. Pass to Solomon.
The result was another one of those incomplete passes, a total disaster. So by the way, I think that Solomon here means Freddie Solomon. He was with the 49ers from 1978 to 1985. And that's the thing about this game that I kind of forgot to mention, right? So the teams are actually a random mix of players from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I don't think that Freddie Solomon has any actual receptions in this game. I think that he's only got that one incomplete pass that shows up like over and over again. Anyway, we forced Dallas into a 4th and 21, but they completed the big pass.
Pass intended for tight end Jay Novacek, and he grabs it. What a catch.
But wait, there's a penalty on the play. We were forced to take the penalty, bringing up an impossible 4th and 31 and moving them way out of field goal range. I basically played all 11 men back, expecting the bomb.
Here's Roger Staubach for the Cowboys. Straight back to pass. A long pass upfield, going for all the marbles. It's incomplete.
And it was incomplete, which means that we won the game, right? But wait.
On the play, let's see what the call is. It's going to be pass interference on the defense.
That passing interference call brought the ball all the way up to the 8-yard line. Yeah, that's right. Passing interference on the freaking Hail Mary. So they got like a 50-yard PI call with like 5 seconds left in the game. I mean, this game just sucks. With time running out, they called for a field goal, and we were in the wrong formation.
Going for the field goal. The kick is up. It's on its way. Is it long enough? And it is good.
And that one sent this game into overtime. So this field goal from the 8-yard line gives us the long field goal animation, but a field goal that we kick from the 30 looks like an extra point. Yeah, great job, Sega. Anyway, the Cowboys won the coin toss, of course.
Staubach under center. Tony Dorsett. Good running room. Heads up field and finally hauled down.
Then they ran the ball all over us. There was nothing we could do to stop this. And you know exactly what was going to happen.
It's Roger Staubach and company. To the outside, running to the left. Here comes Tony Dorsett and into the end zone, touchdown.
Anyway, the stats came out pretty nicely and somewhat believably, even though the game was a total pain in the neck to play. Anyway, there you have it. I don't know. I'm never playing this game again, right? You can be my guest if you want to, but, like, don't do it. And there's no need for me to ever play this again because there's only 2 teams, right? It's not like I'm going to go, like, I don't know, have, like, a season or something. In fact, I didn't play it for you, but at the end of the game, like, the guy's like, oh, this helps the Dallas Cowboys take one more step towards the Super Bowl. Like, seriously? Like, why don't you give us the Super Bowl as the game instead of, like, the random matchup in the NFC, right? Like, the game is okay, I guess, but it's clear that defense does nothing in this game. That's the exact same problem that the old VCR quarterback game had. Do yourself a favor, just stay far, far away from this piece of garbage. It's just not worth your time, and it's not worth my time either.